It's not something most of us want to picture, but take a moment and imagine you're at a funeral. Someone is crying. Who do you see? Is it a man or a woman? Chances are you pictured a woman. In our culture, we've created very different expectations for how men and women are supposed to grieve. And too often, those expectations keep men from truly giving themselves permission to grieve at all.
Almost every single time you hear a man cry in public, they apologize. They say, I'm so sorry, or sorry, or they try to hide it.
But today's guest on Grieving Out Loud, Morgan Rich, is working to change that. He's helping men face grief, change, and pain in healthier ways. And he's also focused on helping men reclaim what healthy masculinity really looks like.
Calling to those men to say, hey, I know that your heart is in there. I know that your sensitivity and your care is in there. And we can do this differently.
Morgan himself felt called to live differently after his dad died when he was just 18 years old. In this episode of Grieving Out Loud, he shares how that loss shaped him and what it taught him about how to live with more intention as a man. Today on Grieving Out Loud, we're taking a closer look at men and grief, why it can be so difficult for men to express their pain, and how silence around loss often carries its own heavy cost. My guest is Morgan Rich, a coach, author, and group facilitator who helps people move through life's big turning points with courage and presence. He works with men, couples, and young adults to face grief, change, and uncertainty with honesty and strength. Morgan is also the author of The Invitation Beyond, Reclaiming Healthy Masculinity, where he explores how connection, sensitivity, and grief can be sources for real power. Through his Find Your Path program, he creates community for those seeking clarity, resilience, and belonging. Welcome to Grieving Out Loud, Morgan.
Thank you. What an honor to be here, Angela. Really, really nice. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am very excited to talk to you about how men struggle to share their grief and how facing vulnerability can actually be a brave step forward. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, first, just want to really honor. It is such an honor to be here, and to say that wanting to honor Emily and all of those. My dad died when I was 18. Maybe may talk about that, but that in so many ways, just wanting to honor them and that their lives and that the struggle and the life that they live that allows us to be here today doing the work that we do. Yeah, and so just a deep blessing as we begin for all of them. And you've been on quite a journey. So
Yeah, thank you for that. I know I was recently in Washington, D.C. with dozens of other parents who've lost kids and just the reminder of all those that we've lost. And I do try to honor my daughter every day and the work that I do. So thank you for that. And I want to talk to you about the loss of your dad at such a young age. And this is your male role model. Were you close to your dad?
it's interesting. It's always interesting looking back. I was very close to my dad, and I also wasn't close to my dad. Part of his journey in his life was that he was a beautiful dad, but I didn't know him as a person. I didn't know him as an adult. I knew him as the guy I had pillow fights with and played in Chicago and went to the basketball games with and the hockey games with. And he came to my games and I knew him in that way and so deeply connected, but I didn't know who he was. And so then when he died, that was certainly part of the loss of the grief for me of wishing that I had known him more. And I still wonder and think about, I want to be having this conversation with him.
Right. And I think we do get to know our parents as we become adults as adults, right? You don't, as a kid, you don't really know the person or what they've been through. You look to them for get your needs met as a child, right?
Sure.
And you're not really knowing the person. And I also read my stepson lost his mother at age 4, right before he turned 5. I mean, a horrible thing to lose a parent at such a young age. And as I was researching and trying to help him with his grief, I learned that you grieve your parental loss, when you lose a parent at a young age, you grieve them at different stages in your life. You grieve them in different ways as you get older.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, for me, I was 18 when my dad died. I was just at the transition from high school to college. And I was I did not do well in school. It was a really hard thing. I was a really big athlete. So that was my home in many ways. And so I was confused and lost. And certainly that is the heart of the Find Your Path program and the work that I do with young people is when my dad died, I went to a place of, I didn't have guidance. Had no idea how to grieve. And it woke me up in a way that was one of the biggest gifts of my life.
Right. I think where the idea, especially in biblical terms, where you're supposed to be grateful for the suffering, right? You're supposed to be grateful in all things for all things. And I think it can be really hard to make that statement that you're grateful for the gift of loss, right?
It for sure was, I mean, it took me a while. I certainly didn't get there. I certainly didn't get there right away. I mean, I went to a place of just absolute utter disbelief. And an amazing thing happened to me when my dad died. I was a first year in college and something in me woke up. And it woke up and it said, I have to feel this and I have to be in the difficulty of this.
I wonder why that is because so often, why did something inside of you wake up? You knew you had to feel it when so often when people experience a catastrophic loss, especially at a young age, and perhaps more especially men, turn to substances to numb that pain because we know that at the root of most addictions is grief. And you didn't do that.
I didn't, and I consider it one of the miracles of my life because it wasn't necessarily a conscious moment. I really got clear that I wasn't going to do drugs. I wasn't going to drink. I wasn't going to do any addictive behavior that got me out of the feeling. For whatever reason, I was able to hang in the feeling. And I'll just say it was really dark. And it was really, there were so many tears and so much loneliness and so many wonderings of why did this happen? And where are you emotional right now? Um, and I couldn't find anyone to support. Like I had this feeling that woke up in me of what is the right way to be in the world, a really deep, deep, deep caring that has been in me my whole life. That, that it was there. And I was at college and I would sit and look over the lake and look at the moon and be like, I can see the moon, Dad, wherever you are, you can see that moon. And so that was our connection. But I would sit and want to be discovered. I would want someone to come and hold me and cry with me. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen in that way. And
Right.
so I had to sit in that sadness for a long time and start to rummage around of what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of this event? And wish it had been different. Like I wish that it hadn't happened, of course. And it did. And as much as I could
Right.
sit here and wish that it didn't happen, it actually did happen. And so for me, it was a place of that became the learning of, okay, life is about being with the challenges in the grief, in the beautiful gifts of it, not trying to avoid it or pretend it didn't happen, wish it didn't happen and get caught in that trajectory.
Right. Grief is such a lonely thing, isn't it? When you said that, that's when I just my heart kind of went, "Oh, yeah," and that's why we do this podcast because if you are really going to sit in your grief, you can only do it alone. As much as other people may want to help you and other people want to run the other way. So
Sure.
you kind of have two sets of people. You have people that really want to stay there with you and help you and I think that's a more unusual kind of person. Maybe somebody who is more awake in consciousness, than other people who are so afraid that your grief is somehow contagious.
Yeah, and it's. I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier. I don't remember exactly which one, but there was thought about, you don't know what to say, and it's not actually about having the right thing to say or doing the right thing, or it was you're at the memorial service for Emily. You were saying that someone said something to you that was really insightful, and you felt like, oh wow, that's actually
Helpful. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but it's awkward. It's an awkward place. Will say, like, part of the coaching that I do and part of the work that I do is I do sit with people in those most intense moments and sit with them in that transformational energy. And I can't say that there's a formula because there's not. What it is, it's about, we just talked about it a little bit a moment ago, really intuitive listening, really just caring, sitting, crying, honoring the tears. And I will say, like, for men, I love my tears. And what I notice about tears is that like, I want to celebrate them because they are the emotional places. And in my groups, when men cry or when I'm with men and they start to get emotional, always just honor that place because it's a place where if you almost every single time you hear a man cry in public, they apologize. They say, I'm so sorry, or they try to hide it. Or is, oh, my friend, no, like, please, like, bring those. Like, those are the meaningful, that's the emotion, that's the care, that's the love, that's the true emotion. It's in there.
Yeah, we're facing a couple of things that come to mind as I hear you speak. First of all, just having presence with someone who is grieving, just being present. It doesn't really matter what you say, just listening with your whole heart, not trying to fix, just being present. That's one thing I learned through my grief educator training, how important that is. And I'm not always good at it myself.
Right.
Sometimes I just want to offer up like, "Hey, I did this and hey, this could help." I want to be a helper, but it's hard to resist those feelings. And then the other thing about men crying, I think there's just such a toxic masculinity that's being actually reinforced in today's culture where men are supposed to be just cruel and tough and it alarms me because I thought we were making some progress, in this area, but it seems like we're going backwards, like the 1950s, ideal male who was, type A alpha male and didn't show any emotion, never was allowed to cry, and I think learned that from their dads, right? Like, "Don't be a crybaby," that kinda thing.
Well, I think they learn it from their dads. I think they learn it from the culture. I mean, if you look out,
Mhm.
if you look out into this world today and see men in the public, they're, let's just say, they aren't the best role models out there of, like, learning how to
Mhm.
be emotional. And I will say that in my groups, the men that I run into, and a lot of, there are a lot of beautiful, sensitive men in the world. And it really was the motivation for the book, The Invitation Beyond, because the invitation beyond is the invitation beyond the status quo, beyond the nonsense, beyond all the BS that is having us stay caught. And it was calling to those men to say, hey, I know that your heart is in there. I know that your sensitivity and your care is in there. And we can do this differently. But we don't have the role model. But there's more and more of us who are role models who are saying, hey, it's safe over here.
Are you ready to protect the next generation from the dangers of substance use? Emily's Hope has created a comprehensive K through 12 substance use prevention curriculum designed to educate, empower, and equip students with the tools they need to make healthy choices. Our age-appropriate lessons start in kindergarten and build through high school, using science, real stories, and interactive learning to help kids understand their bodies, brains, and risk of drug use. We're already reaching thousands of students across multiple states, and we're just getting started. Visit emilyshopeedu.org to learn more and share our curriculum with your school administrators and counselors. At Emily's Hope, we believe prevention begins with education. Let's work together to keep our kids safe. Yeah, because in that part of your book title, you talked the invitation beyond reclaiming healthy masculinity. How do you define healthy masculinity?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of my young guys, and a 16-year-old in the group, was like, "Morgan, will you define healthy masculinity for me?" It was great. Like, beautiful
Yeah,
question
good.
for him. Um, and we had this beautiful discussion. But, you know, domination and manipulation and control are the things of, like, let's shut down how we then handle things and control, and so that it's the way that I need it to. That's the unhealthy version. So the healthy version of it is, what is it to be vulnerable? What is it to be flexible? What is it to be able to be present with myself, where I've got myself. So I don't need the validation from outside. I don't need the validation from my resume, from my paycheck, from my peers, from my boss, from my kids, from my whatever. That I've got myself. And then I'd be able to really be present with my people. I'm really be able to be present with the moment, and so that when something happens, whether it be my child dies or an event happens in the world, that it's not a referendum on my own, well, like if I'm a good person or good dad or good human, like that's already handled. And so that I
Right.
can be with whatever happens.
It sounds like it's what you're saying is knowing who you are and having, confidence in who you are, really knowing yourself, and also having some self-love and acceptance of who you are. And I think for any person, most people don't start off with that. There's a lot of insecurity in your younger years. I mean, for me personally, it took me years to get to the point where I know who I am, and I don't care what other people say or think. I say that to some extent, even though sometimes I do care,
Right.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot less than I used to when I was younger, right? And so, but I think it sometimes takes time to get to that point. And I don't know that boys are really given. Maybe women are given a little more leeway, given a little more chance, and boys are not really given that. I thought a lot about this as I raised sons.
Mhm.
Um, I read some books on how to raise boys, and I was a single mom, and I just think our culture makes it really hard.
It does. It does. I was talking to my partner, my beautiful partner the other day, and we were talking about what, some of the shifts between for men and women. And when women start menstruating, it's this built-in rite of passage where there's a very clear moment of going from child to adolescent to adult. And it creates a certain level of maturity. It creates a certain level of shift of knowing to some extent part of who I am, of that transition. For men, there's not anything quite as obvious as that. And there's not role models again out there to say, um, here's who you are and here's what you want to be. And my belief about all this is that is that I don't want to standardize children. I don't want kids to go to school and be all learning the same thing. The model that I love and the old story that I just love so much is the elders in a community sitting and watching the kids. And actually, Reggio Emilia, the teaching technique, does this. That the technique is they sit and they watch the kids and they see, oh, that she has an ability. She has that ability to cook in a way that's really special. Oh, he's got that ability to talk to the stars. Oh, wait, there's that thing in him. He's really physical and knows how to navigate the world. And they're watching and they're seeing the unique, beautiful abilities inside of the kids. And then they match them up with the other adults, other people in the community who know how to cultivate that particular skill. And so then what we start to have is what is it that's unique about me? What is it that makes me, for me, when my dad died, I started to wake up to this deep caring that's in me that I see the world, I hold the world, that I know what it is to be the man I want to be. I know what it is to be caring and have integrity and have respect and treat people well and be kind and be a beacon in the world of all that's good, connection with the natural world. And I didn't know that. I didn't learn that from school. I didn't learn that from, like, no one helped me find that. And so that was part of what the grief brought me, was into those places where I had to really find myself. I had to listen to that inner guidance and find that place. And I would just say, God, it would be so much easier for us if we actually had adults around helping cultivate that feeling, because then we wouldn't get lost and I'm supposed to be something other than I actually am.
Right, right. And so many men are out there kind of putting on this mask, and that's not who they really are. And I think, like I said, I think women are allowed a little more leeway, although if you're a strong woman, that's not always rewarded in our society either. As I learned as an investigative reporter and all the other things that I've done, people will try to put you back in your place. And with men, it's like they're not allowed. It's the opposite, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just this way. What I see, and I go to these retreats and I lead retreats and I with these men, and I keep saying, I want the world to know these men, these beautiful men who are willing to share emotion, who are willing to cry and scream and get their grief out and feel their grief. There are so many beautiful men in the world, but it's like we don't know we don't see them because of because of
Right.
the pressure, because of the this is what we're supposed to be like. And so I like this, I feel like I'm shining light on the pathway of inviting guys into their hearts, inviting guys into places in them that feel deep, that listen well, that have this beautiful sensitivity, that actually the strength that we want from our men.
Right. And I've talked to some amazing men and dads on this podcast. However, it is dominated by women, women who start organizations, women who've lost children, really women in this field of advocacy and trying to change the world for other families. And I've thought a lot about that. And I've thought one of the reasons why I don't hear from as many men
Mhm.
is because men are supposed to be the protector. And when you lose a child, you couldn't protect your family from that. You couldn't protect your child. And it's such a hard thing for men, I think, to face. They definitely, many don't want to be public about it. They don't want to talk about it. They tend to shut down. You also hear about more divorces after the loss of a
Mhm.
child.
Mhm.
Um, I'm lucky I have such a supportive spouse who's gone through losses of his own as well as the loss of our daughter. And so lucky in that way, but also where are the men and why are so few talking to me?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the same thing. I mean, I noticed the same thing as I've been listening to your work and learning about it. Then I was like, where are all the dads? Because it's not just the moms who have lost kids,
Right.
not just them who have gone through the tragedy. Where are the dads and what's happening with them? And there are, more divorces and more challenges. And it's that place of where can they turn to? Because it is that, again, if you're wrapped up in the place of my identity is based on how I am as a dad or all those different places. And in the intensity of these kind of situations, dad died, when Emily died, when you lose something really significant, that things get super shaky. And it's really easy to fall into places where you start to feel bad. And so part of the learning in those places is to hang in, and then is to find community, is to find people who can really see and talk to. And I would say to the women out there, please know that we do care, that we do care, and that it's challenging.
Yeah, I think when people grieve differently, like a woman may be allowed to be really expressive about her grief, right? At least initially. And then men may just shut down. And I think it's really hard for one to understand the other. And that's where problems arise in relationships. I think dads can have fathers, husbands can have problems with their spouse, with their other children after a horrific loss because of their response to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I said, my dad's death was one of the biggest gifts of my life. And what it required being able to be in the intensity and be in the intensity in my case alone. I wanted guidance. I couldn't, I had a lot of guidance that was saying, you're supposed to do this and just do this. And I was like, you aren't actually seeing and hearing. Because when I'm seen and heard, and when we're able to be in the grief together, then things start to break open in this beautiful, gorgeous way where it deepens the connection. Where we don't have to, the perception for men is that if I'm emotional and I'm sad and I'm hurt and I'm devastated by the loss, that I'm weak. And I want to say, no, my friend, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Is one of the things I say is like the courage for those out there who are grieving and who are feeling, the courage to stay present in it, to feel it, to be with it is absolutely tremendous. And that is the stunning opposite of weakness. Feel the vulnerability to allow the deepening of the connection with your partner to be in it. Like these have a chance to And I would say that the biggest honor that we can do for the loss is to never be the same, but is to learn how to be bigger, to learn how to be more connected, is learn how to take this, like you have done so beautifully, and catalyze it into meaning and into purpose and into something more than you've ever been. That life and death are part, death is an absolute part of life, and it opens.
Right.
Forest fire happens. And what it does is it burns everything. But then the new sprouts come up, new trees grow. Some acorns only sprout in the heat of the fire. And so now you have something new being reborn and coming alive. And so in that way, we use these as transformational moments to deepen our connection to self and others as we move forward in life. And for me, that's the place that I want men to step into, and that I step into them with. Like, that's the real gift. And it's such an honor to sit with men and watch them, just the beauty of their care as they're able to help in the intensity, because it's really like relearning a new pattern of how to be a man.
Right. It is really relearning. And I know we have a lot of female listeners to this podcast. And I want to encourage the listener with us today, to share this podcast with the men in their lives, with their sons, with their husbands, their uncles, nephews, with their entire family, because this isn't talked about enough. And because we have so many female listeners, what advice do you have for women? What can they say to the men in their lives to encourage what you're talking about for the men to actually dig in, get in, and feel the pain and to release their emotions? Can we do anything as partners to encourage that?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of it is like we talked about before, is that there's not a right way to do this. And there's not like the magical thing that you're going to say or do to release and open it all. It's more about being present and really listening and knowing and allowing for. When I was sitting on the bench with my dad, uh, I just wanted someone to come sit with and see and feel and help hold the space, let's say, of the sadness, of allowing that to break open inside of me, of, like you experienced. I don't know that there was anything anyone could have said or done, but to not be alone in it and to honor and to see that, it's, promise you that the men are feeling, that they are hurting, that they are trying to figure out how to navigate this, and that there's not a pathway forward for it except being that stoic, strong, like, I got this, don't cry kind of guy. And that we know just doesn't. And so it's sitting in there and being able to just be in the different space and know that they want it, And then acknowledgement of the courage, of the care that it takes to actually be in the grief. Because it takes just about everything you got to hang in there.
Right. And then if you have young men in your household, and maybe you've experienced a loss and younger siblings, I feel like younger siblings, young men, I'm going to say boys, um, could be a little more open if they're coached in the right way, right?
Yeah, well, there's the veil. I like to say the veil is thinner. The
Mm.
veil is thinner, and so the programming hasn't gotten so strong where they have to be that they're still learning. They're still in the form of that beautiful formanting of identity.
If you'd like to read Morgan's book, The Invitation Beyond Reclaiming Healthy Masculinity, we've added a link in the show notes. There, you'll also find a few related Grieving Out Loud episodes we think you'll find helpful. And you can always find hundreds of other episodes on our website, emily'shope.charity. You've mentioned the gifts that grief has given you. What else has grief taught you? And what has has witnessing other people's grief taught you as well?
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Angela, for that. Whew, so much. I mean, one is that I can do hard things. That what it's taught me is that it's taught me that I can sit in even the difficulty of life, and then it's okay. Part of my part of my daily practice is that I connect in with the man I know myself to be, is what I say. Is that caring, beautiful man, knowing my inner guidance, knowing who I am, and that I can be in each moment. And so by being inside of the grief, it allows me to be connected to the natural world, to myself, to that level of confidence. And so from there, things shift, because I don't fall into this, oh my God, something happened to me, that I'm now a victim of this circumstance, and I'm now, oh my God, my life is now ruined because this is horrible. And it is horrible, but it also is part of life, and it thing that happened. And that's the way life goes, is sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and things break apart. And so we can feel like, oh my God doesn't like me or is torturing me or whatever. But it can also just be like, this is what happens. Hard things happen. And so for me, being in that grief at such a young age, and having like stunning, or whatever it was in me, like the soul woke up, and my soul woke up, and it taught me to, here I am, and I can do this. Yeah.
I heard you say that's the way life goes, and that resonates with me for a personal reason. My daughter Abby and I always say we're going to have that saying tattooed somewhere on our bodies because we had her godmother, like a grandmother to my kids, who has since passed away. That was her saying. That's the way life
That's the way
goes,
life goes.
and I think that phrase is significant to me because it means acceptance, acceptance of what's happening in life and not fighting against what has happened, things you can't change. And I think so many of us spend our lives swimming upstream, trying to make things happen, trying to change the past, trying to change what is when we can't, instead of going with the flow of life and understanding, this thing happened. All I can control is my response to it. I have a decision on how I'm going to respond. And that is what that signifies to me.
As one of the nation's strongest financial organizations, First Premier Bank and Premier Bank Card have the strength to do good. We support nearly 700 organizations and nonprofits. Our employees give more than 30,000 volunteer hours annually. And we are continually seeking ways to make South Dakota an even better place to live. It's the Premier way. First Premier Bank and Premier Bank Card.
Yeah, and that's part of the that's part of the gift in all of this, and it's part of the learning of, okay, so here's this thing happened, and now I have to dance with it, deal with it. And inside of that is the, for me, daily practice of coming back to, okay, when I another part of my practice is getting really good at being uncomfortable. So the way that I do that is because that's exactly what you talked about. That being able to be with whatever happens requires being able to be in discomfort.
Mhm.
And so years ago, we had a cabin on Forest Service land, and so there's a beautiful creek running through it, and the creek is basically snow melt. And I, for whatever reason, made a commitment to myself, because I love being in the creek and I love laying down in waterfalls, that I was going to get into the water every day. And in order to do that, you got to get into cold water. And so I would get in the morning, and the first reaction was like, that's cool. And I would jump up. And I was like, okay, that's not particularly helpful. Like, my nervous system is all amped up. I'm like freaking out. I'm staying like, I'm just like in this crazy place. So I shifted and made a commitment to say, okay, I'm going to get in the water, and I don't have to get in for any length of time, but I do have to have a moment of calm. Just a moment where I go, okay, here I am. This is really intense. There's a lot of sensation that I'm labeling in my brain, my head, my thinking part as uncomfortable or problematic or something. Actually, it's just sensation. And so if I can have just one moment of calm, then I can get out and do that. So I started to do that. I get in, jarring and then calm. And the one moment became 3 moments. And the 3 moments became 7, and the 7 became 20. And then it became 2 minutes, and then it became whatever it was, where I was able to hang in the cold and stay present and be curious and experience, like, this is actually what it feels like to be right here, right now. And so one of the practices that I do with all my guys is to use a cold shower, because you have the control right there, and it doesn't matter how cold, you don't have to like jam it all the way to like the coldest setting. Just go where it's a little bit uncomfortable, and where you can keep your nervous system calm, and do it for a beat, and then turn it to whatever is comfortable. And then you just keep practicing that edge. For me, that presence in the discomfort is exactly what you were just talking about, right? It's that place of, if you can be with the intensity of life, it starts to break open. It starts to become a place of curiosity. Starts to become a place of care, and where you can see things and see different perspectives differently, and hold space then for others in that, and accept that however hard this is, it's part of life, because in the natural world, things don't. This time of the year is the fall. You can sit and look, at least in the hemispheres. You can look at the leaves and watch them and their beautiful colors shifting, and in their death of the system things ahead. And so being able to be with that beautiful process, and then absorb and take the lessons that come.
Right. I think nature has a lot to teach us. And cold plunges are extremely popular right now.
They are.
So
They are.
maybe that's why, to help go from that physical resistance and create that mental toughness, right? To be able to just deal with it, handle it.
Absolutely. And again, I just want to name the place of, like, part of what I see in this funny thing is this, like, yeah, I stayed in the cold plunge for 7.5 minutes. How long did you stay in? And there's this whole like
Competition.
competition thing that goes, it's like so massive.
Yeah.
And it's like, great. The longer you stay in, there's a certain level where, yes, it's healthier to stay longer. But again, for me, it has nothing to do with the length of time, and it has nothing to do with has to do for me with that moment of calm. It has to do with learning to be present. It has to do with me finding myself, because again, it circles back to that I've got me place. But if I'm saying, like, my identity is based on being in the cold plunge for a certain amount of time, that's outsourcing my identity. It's about really learning to be present with myself. And then I'm inside of myself. I'm with myself, or I've got this. And then from here, I can handle the hard things. And again, this is going back to a question about what did I learn from grief? Like, this is how to really be with myself, how to really have myself. And it was hard, like wanting to die hard, like right on the edge.
Right. And having compassion for yourself. I don't think many humans have a lot of compassion for themselves, male, female. I think that it is not something that we're taught to cultivate. And I always say that to newly grieving parents, just please be kind to yourself. Understand all these emotions you're feeling are normal. But you have to be kind to yourself, give yourself time, grace, space, all those things.
Yeah. And in my group last night, we were talking about this, and really the theme for the summer was how we talk to ourselves, my internal narrative is everything. That in that place, when if you can be in the place of like, wow, this is so intense, and here I am feeling it. Here I am allowing myself to cry. Here I am having any idea what to do, but at least I'm not drinking, smoking, being destructive, acting out, and it doesn't have to be big things, but just here I am in a moment of, wow, this is challenging. And it takes a huge amount of creativity and care to start to learn how to do exactly that, how to acknowledge ourselves, how to tell our story, my story, with care and acknowledgement, and then I am doing the best that I can right here. And that it makes us, it's huge, huge, huge. So the guys were talking about it last night because I just have zero tolerance when guys start to talk poorly about themselves. And I just could see the kid, this one guy just would, he was giving himself a hard time. Like, I'm my own harshest critic. I said, James, my friend, like you are such a beautiful man and so caring and have such a beautiful heart. And I want you to talk to yourself kindly. And he got really emotional. Starting to,
Yeah.
so
It is one thing that we can all get better at, right? And I just so appreciate this insightful, really deep conversation that we've been having, Morgan.
yeah.
And I'm grateful for it and for your book. I want to remind people that your book, The Invitation Beyond Reclaiming Healthy Masculinity, is available, and we'll have a link to it in the show notes of this podcast. Any closing words that you want to leave us with, Morgan?
Yeah, well, I want to just offer acknowledgement of those listening have certainly been through, and what you're offering here, Angela, is a real service to people. It's part of that, that I think a lot of people are sitting on my bench, having gone through something really hard, and to be able to turn to a voice that cares and is there and is able to meet them in that place just makes a huge, huge, huge difference. And so then we don't have to do this. But
Right.
like part of grieving is that there is a lot of personal inner work, and we don't have to do it alone. We don't have to do it alone because of what you're offering here. And please, to all the women, like go sit with your guy, and to the guys, go sit with your woman, and allow this to be the transformational moment that it can be. And I have some resources if you want a guide that's when grief comes, a guide to stay present. And I wanted to offer that to your listeners as a for their presence and their care. Again, that it takes a lot to be in this place.
Well, that's fantastic, and thank you for that. We'll put a link in the show notes for people to tap into that resource. I think anything we can do, that's always my mission with this podcast, to let people know that they are not alone, because I know how lonely that grief is. And I'm always validated when I'm traveling and someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, thank you for doing your podcast." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you for saying that, because that is why I do it." And I'm grateful for guests like you that can really help get the word out, and change some hearts and minds
Change
too.
hearts and mind. And so if you go to morganrich.com/grief, there are some resources there for you, specifically for listeners of the podcast. I do have 2 openings for coaching spaces right now, and sitting in that intensity. And so that's on the website as well. Link to the book is on the website, is on this page, and all my writing and materials. So morganrich.com/grief. And you can also schedule a 15-minute conversation if you'd like to do that as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do, Morgan.
Thank you. Nice to be here with you.
And thank you so much for listening to Grieving Out Loud. Join us again next week for a new conversation with an incredibly inspiring woman. Dr. Sophie Tuhawk became the first Native American to graduate from medical school in South Dakota, even though she faced constant pressure and doubt from the world around her.
They told me, natives don't do that. If you're lucky, maybe you can be an LPN, not even an RN, an LPN. And so the encouragement wasn't even there in the school systems to encourage me to look further. Thankfully, though, I had some parents who said, hey, if that's what you want to do, let's help you do it.
That's new next week on Grieving Out Loud. Thank you again for listening. I hope you found this episode helpful. Until next time, wishing you faith, hope, and courage. This podcast is produced by Casey Wonderberg King and Kaylee Fitz.